Hello, my name's Laird, and thank you for joining me. I've been really wanting a place to take down notes and to put to-do lists, so I decided I wanted to make a dry erase board. I started by picking up an old pane of glass from my local Habitat for Humanity restore. I think this was an old screen door window that broke. I then took measurements of this pane of glass to make sure I knew what frame size I needed to make, and then gave it a really good clean. You want to make sure at least one side of the glass is completely clean of any sort of debris, smudges, or anything. After cleaning it, I gave it a really good dry to make sure all dust particles and everything I could make sure was gone was cleared off. This is really important because you're going to paint it and you don't want anything to be getting in between the glass and the paint. Once you're sure it's dry and clean, I just started giving it a nice layer of white spray paint. This is Rust-Oleum flat white spray paint. I used a whole can for this, and I probably could have used a little more, but I only had one can on hand, so I just used what I had and made the most of it. As always with spray painting, you want to make sure you give an even coat, spraying far enough away that it's not making too many streaks. As you can see, mine ended up a little streaky, which just takes more spray paint in the end. Thanks to the magic of editing, I've been able to speed up this process a little bit for you guys. It's not quite as slow as it took me, but this is definitely a 20 to 30 minute process. I put an old big piece of plastic in the back to not spray paint my railing while I was doing this, and always be sure to wear the proper protective equipment like a respirator when using spray paint like this. As I waited for the spray paint to dry, I started to make all my measurements on my 1x6s to start building the frame itself. I got this wood from Home Depot, and my measurements are specific to my frame, but you'd have to adjust depending on the size of glass that you received or that you found for yourself. Here you can see that I rough cut my 1x6s to the rough lengths. I think it's 76 and 33 inches to make that frame. I then ripped them all by 1.5 inches, and then whatever the remainder of the 1x6 dimensional lumber is. And then I passed this through the table saw, moving over the fence every 1/8 inch. So I made basically a dado. I was too lazy to set up the actual dado stack, but didn't take too long. So I'm going to be cleaning up all of this extra to make a nice lip to put the glass behind. If it wasn't quite clear before, basically I made a recess for the glass panel to sit in. So I'll be sandwiching two pieces of wood together, and this 1/8 inch deep recess allows the edge of the glass to be kind of held between the wood frame. After light sanding, I put pocket holes at the end of each piece. This will help secure the butt joints that will make the corners of the frame. A butt joint is basically any two pieces of wood that just butt up next to each other. Here I'm actually clearing out little chunks for the butt joint to be more clean. Otherwise we'd have overlap with that recess that I had made earlier, and I was afraid I wasn't going to get any purchase from those pocket holes. So I just cut them out with a handsaw and then cleaned it out with a chisel. So here you can see the butt joint actually being put together and why I removed that little piece of wood to make that recess go all the way around. Just add a little bit of glue, made sure I was square, and then I'll put a pocket hole screw right in there to hold it all together. To secure this to the wall, I plan to use a French cleat system. Here I'm cutting it to the right length, but a French cleat is basically two 45-degree beveled edges that clip together. One screwed to the wall and one is screwed to the piece, and here you can see it at the very top of this frame as I'm actually assembling it. It's got that 45-degree bevel, and I would mount an opposite 45-degree bevel to the wall. It basically holds in. The actual building of a French cleat is maybe beyond the scope of this video, but I'd highly recommend looking into it if you're trying to build anything with a lot of that needs to hold a lot of weight. This frame obviously needs to hold a lot of weight, as this glass panel is definitely a heavy item. The design of my frame is very simple. It's basically two rectangles that are sandwiched together. On the back panel, I have a cross member in the center that'll add a little extra support, and then at the top I have that French cleat. On the front panel, it's just one large rectangular frame. Here I'm countersinking holes for me to screw through the back panel into the front. I'm not going to actually glue these together just in case I ever need to remove the glass if it breaks or something bad happens. So there's that front panel, and then the back panel's leaning up to the left. I actually stained the front panel previously. I just forgot to catch it on film, but you can see some of the stain around the bottom. Here I'm actually securing the back panel to the front, and I'm just putting a short, I think 1-inch long screws through. You want to make sure you're not going to hit the glass because that could cause it to shatter, so they're all going just into the area on the outside. Any keen observers can also see I made my back panel 1/2 inch too big. I ended up just using my circular saw and some sandpaper to rip it off and then sand it smooth, so it wasn't the end of the world, just an extra step to take. Overall, I think it turned out really well, and then I went around with a little bit of stain to clean up all the edges. Overall, I'm really happy with how this turned out. I think it looks really good, and it works really well, so I really can't complain too much at all. I broke it out into some pros and cons, just for anybody who's interested. The primary pro is that it works well. I mean, it draws just like a normal whiteboard, but honestly, it erases better than a whiteboard. It's incredible. Second, it was really affordable. It only cost $20 for the pane of glass, $15 for the lumber, another $4 for this can of white spray paint, so I think all in $39. I did have the screws and the tools on hand, but overall, really affordable for such a high quality board. Third, the size. I really like the size. Maybe that'd be a con for people that are trying to find a very specific size of glass. But for me, it works perfectly. This is how much space I really had, so I maximized it to its fullest. It works perfectly for a to-do list. Just check them off as you go down. All in all, really happy there. Finally, it cleans super well. This is a slightly damp rag, and it just wipes right off. It's incredible. It's way better than any dry erase board I've used before, and I really appreciate that aspect of it. As far as the cons, it is very heavy. I guess it's 40 pounds or so. That's why I use that French cleat. That is really essential to make sure you have a really secure hold on the wall. I'd also highly recommend hitting at least 2 studs when you're putting up that cleat. It's not worth taking any risks with this thing coming down because it is so heavy. With that being said, attempt this project at your own risk. I do not recommend it because it is so heavy. You want to make sure you're being really careful and really diligent about how you're securing it to the wall. If you don't think you have studs to secure it to, or you're just not confident, there are other options like whiteboard paint that might be a better option for you. Second, it took a little while. It was not the fastest process. I enjoyed the process, so I think it was well worth my time, but if you don't have a ton of time, there are better options. Maybe just buying one from Office Max, or as I said before, that whiteboard paint does work. It leaves a little bit more smudges from my experience. If there's like any imperfections on the wall, the ink kind of gets caught there, and so it's hard to get it like completely clean. This thing, you can get it as clean as it was day one. So that's my 2 cents. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. If you have any questions, please leave any comments below, or if you have any recommendations for how I could have done this better, for if I'm going to do it again in the future, how I can improve, please let me know there too. I really appreciate any feedback, and just knowing that people are enjoying the videos really makes it worth my while. Thanks so much, and have a great day.